IVM.
There's a quick survey to fill out on ivmpodcast.com/survey. It lets us know a little bit more about who's listening to us. And you know what? We're going to do a few prizes. So, we'll do a random drawing of maybe 10 people and we'll send you all some swag. Remember, that's ivmpodcast.com/survey where you can fill out the survey.
Disasters can be very frightening and confusing for children, but with a little help, they can learn how to respond and even navigate emergency situations. Emergency and disaster preparedness is not one person's job. The entire family, household, and even schools should be involved, including the kids. Listen to this episode where we bring in an expert, Chakradhari Rowe, a security architect and tactical instructor who has studied protection and counterterrorism from ISA Israel and is a liaison for ISA in India. Join us as we discuss what an emergency is and what we as parents and educators can do to bring about a culture of safety awareness in our society. Tune in. Almost every job in the world requires training, except parenting.
You need to learn parenting on the job, and that can be really hard.
Here on Big Talk About Tiny Humans, we want to help you navigate the world of parenting better and make your lives a little bit easier.
Hi, I'm Meghna.
And hi, I'm Devishobha.
Every week, we bring you the best research on parenting,
Top tips from experts,
and actionable strategies to confront the numerous challenges that all parents and educators face.
So let's get started, shall we? So we hear about the National Bravery Awards and we think, wow, these kids have been so amazing. And what is it that actually has given them the preparedness to act in a certain way and to act so admirably and save the situation, save the day for so many people around them? What gives them, what is that element that we can instill in our lives and in our children and in our environment? So to talk about this subject, we have a very special guest today on our show, the Big Talk About Tiny Humans podcast. Our guest is Chakradhari Rowe, aka CR. He's also very popularly called CR. He is a security architect and a tactical instructor, and he has studied protection and counterterrorism from ISA Israel and is the liaison for ISA in India. He's a consultant with IIRIS Consulting, one of India's top risk management firms, and he's also an advisor catalyst for Cyber Diplomat, a company that is heavily invested in training parents, kids, and institutions on helping them in making technology safer for their kids. He's also the founder of In Code Yellow, an initiative to train women and children in mental and physical preparedness against malicious intent and action. He's also the go-to person when it comes to consulting on personal security and safety. He authors a newsletter, Security 101, on LinkedIn that addresses the subject of security and safety for all ages and goes by the hashtag CR Speaks on all social media platforms. So welcome, CR. It's such a pleasure to have you here after such a long time. Thank you for honoring my request and being on our show. It's such an honor.
Absolutely. It's an absolute pleasure to be on this show here and talk about people who matter most in our lives. Kids.
Yes, absolutely. I know you're very passionate about the subject. I know we have done workshops and talks before, and I know you have a very unique take on the topic. And I love hearing you on the twist that you have and why parents and educators are mistaken about a very key element in the preparedness for security and safety in children. So I would love for our audience to hear that. And in the meanwhile, I have a few questions for you. So, CR, I would like to understand from your perspective, what is your definition of an emergency? How do you define an emergency situation or a situation that can be called a disaster?
Okay, most of the definitions that I will be sharing are not something that you might find on the World Wide Web, because these are something that I have created for the audience that I address. A lot of times it is kids, and the kind of definitions that are available online are very heavy. They can't be really explained to kids. So in my definition, emergency is any situation that needs a tactical response. Now, what is tactical? Tactical is when you have less time and you need high accuracy. Okay, now anyone who gives a lot of GMAT and all these kind of exams will understand tactical, because you have 60 questions to answer in like 60 minutes possibly. So, so you have to be you have to take less time, and you have to be highly effective, highly accurate. So any situation that needs that kind of a response is an emergency situation. Now, I would also like to add, now there are two kinds of emergency situations. So one is a life-threatening, or which can cause hurt, if not, a life-threatening situation. And the other one is a casual emergency. Now, there is a big challenge where we as civilians, now I will count myself in, we as civilians, we are not really taught what these terms are. Because in schools, colleges, we're not taught. Emergency drill means that there is a bell and we need to run out. Right? That's what emergency is being associated with mentally and physically. But there are two kinds of emergency situations. You have a life-threatening one and a casual emergency, and I'll give you examples. For example, life-threatening one would be, let's say, an earthquake, or it could be fire, something that will threaten your life, your existence, or maybe could cause hurt to you. The other casual emergencies that most of us face in our daily lives is casual emergencies. For example, let's say you're cooking in the kitchen, and you have something on the stove, and the gas is gone. Okay, so it's an emergency, correct? You need to get the gas, you need to change the gas, or you're trying to cook a dish, and suddenly you find there is a certain ingredient which is missing. So you call your kid and say, it is an emergency, go get salt, or go get sugar. Now, it might be an emergency, but it is not a life-threatening emergency. It's a casual emergency. Now, this needs to be taught to kids. They need to understand the difference between SOS, which is save our souls, which is a life-threatening emergency, and they need to understand what is an urgent situation, which is not life-threatening. Okay, so I taught my kid that every time you have an emergency, so I can't teach him what is life-threatening at the age of 5. So I told him that, whenever you have an emergency, you just say SOS. So what happens is, when he wants to use the washroom, he says SOS, Dada, SOS. Correct. So this will happen. It's okay. This will happen because they are learning. Okay, they're learning. There will be a lot of false alarms. But that is how you are giving them the space to learn what an emergency is and how they need to communicate that to you.
That's brilliant. On this note, let's take a break and come back.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Advertising is Dead, Varun talks to Pallavi Uttagi of Super Bottoms and Mamta Roy of Odette Style. They reveal how they built their respective businesses completely online. On Postcards from Nowhere, Utsav tells us the story of nutmeg and how it became the world's most violent spice. On Big Talk About Tiny Humans, Devishobha and Meghna share strategies on how one can balance screen time and family time. On Hansvani, hear the story Koi Parichit. It reflects India's belief in humanity and the unanimity it showed in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. On Tere Mere Raste, Keshav takes us to Jaisalmer, a city where sand, sandstone and water come together to weave a magical story of valor and view. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. And don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms you're listening to us on. Also, remember, we're on YouTube. You can check us out on ivmpodcast.com/YouTube and get a list of all the YouTube channels we have active at this point. I'd also like to make a quick note that we're doing a small listener survey, and it would really help us if you could fill that out. You can go to ivmpodcast.com/survey. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, SBI Life Insurance and India Water Portal. Thank you so much for making this possible.
Welcome back. You're listening to Big Talk About Tiny Humans. CR, the thing that you mentioned about preparing our kids for emergencies. Now, there is a misconception that children need defense training to counter emergencies. For example, there could be an attack or a kidnapping, right? But I've often heard you advocate that there are important steps that come before training in martial arts. So could you talk about that a little?
Definitely, doctor. So the first thing I want to mention about self-defense is that the degree of reality we pack into our trainings determines our success in emergency situations. Okay, I'm going to repeat this because this is very, very important for us to understand as humans. The degree of reality we pack in our trainings determines our success in emergency response. So if we are not training for real life situations, high possibility that when the situation really comes, we will freeze.
Right.
We will not be able to respond because our mind will push in neurochemicals or neurofreezers into our system, and it will just freeze us. Now, what is martial arts? Let's talk about the question you asked me. So what is martial arts? It is a tactic to counter and mitigate physical attacks. Okay, now my question to all the parents listening or all the teachers, everyone listening, is one: do you really want an attacker to get close to your child?
No.
I wouldn't want that to happen.
Yeah, obviously.
Correct? I do not want an attacker to come close to my kid for him to use self defense.
Right.
So we need to understand that it only works when the attacker is up close. The smaller your limbs, that is your hands, the smaller your hands, that closer you need to be to the adversary. Now, that's a dangerous situation for any kid or woman or anyone to be, even a man to be in. Correct. So this is a very, very big fact which everybody conveniently ignores. They think that just by learning self-defense or martial art, they become invincible, which is practically not possible. It happens only in the movies. Correct. Now, second thing we need to understand here is that it takes years of practical and aggressive practice to master this art. Practical and aggressive. Martial arts is all about teaching aggression. Of course, it is teaching controlled aggression, but still aggression. Now, second question I want to ask all parents is, do you really want to teach your kids aggression? It could be 5 years, 10 years, even 15 years. Is aggression, aren't you seeing around you that the world is already getting so hostile? Do you really want to teach aggression to your kids? Or do you want to teach them something that will help them deter, as a deterrence? Okay. And a third very important point is, when we are teaching martial arts to kids, okay, the way we are teaching them or the way, it is taught to our kids is very impractical. And I'll share a few examples here. The dress that our kids wear when they're learning martial arts is all loose. It's not the daily wear. It's not the pants, it's not the jeans, it's not the skirts, or it's none of this. Correct? So it is impractical, because when they will be in a situation which calls for a physical response, they are wearing a total different attire. Correct? And they could be even in an attire which actually does not allow them to use the tactics. For example, if a lady is wearing pencil skirt and she's wearing a stilettos, I can't expect her to do a kick, correct, or even run for that matter. Correct? So practically it is not possible. So what we are teaching them is not practical. The floor is all padded. Correct? So you fall down, you don't feel the hurt. But when you are actually attacked or abused, you don't have a padded floor. It could be a road, it could be a cemented ground, and there when you fall, it hurts. Correct? And the icing on the cake for this point is, when we are teaching martial arts to kids, there is a referee to blow the whistle when you're getting hurt. In real life, when you're getting abused or attacked, there is no referee. Right. Correct? So you get beaten up like, to the end of the world. So when we are teaching our kids martial arts, are we packing enough practicality? Are we packing enough degree of reality into it? And if we are not doing that, then I think we're just wasting their time. I mean, yes, I will not take everything away from martial arts. Yes, they do build them physically, and they do become more stronger. Definitely, yes. But setting a wrong expectation to kids, to parents, that martial arts will actually help their kids defend themselves from malicious intent and action is, I think, a completely wrong way of, a wrong expectation to.
Wow, I don't think I've ever thought about it like that.
Yeah. You know what, CR, I so totally agree with this. And I actually have a real life example to share of my own childhood. I was 9 when my mom in Mumbai, we were living in Mumbai at that time, and my mom sent me out early in the morning to buy some milk, right? In those days, milk had to be bought from a booth, right? So I went there, and on my way back, so Mumbai has these high-rise apartments, right, on the way. So there was some guy who was also delivering milk in the apartment, some other apartment, not our apartment, but another apartment on the way. And he was like, he came to me, he showed me a card and said, do you know this person? Do you know this apartment? And I incidentally knew somebody there. And I kind of thought that I can find my way. And I went with him. Okay.
Oh my God.
I didn't even know that somebody could be actually trapping me there. And I went with him and I entered the building, and it was a stairwell. And suddenly he just held my fists and he closed my mouth and he pushed me against the wall. And I was like choking for breath, and I was shocked. First of all, I was in shock and I didn't know what to do. And he was pushing himself against me, and I was against the wall. And I somehow pushed his hand, away from my mouth, and I managed to let out a scream. It was early in the morning, and I struggled for quite some time, and then I somehow did that, and somebody just from the stairwell heard me, and somebody was trying to open the door, and immediately he let me off. It was a very lucky day for me. But if I had known this, if I had been prepared, I would have just avoided the entire situation, So definitely, if somebody had talked to me about this, right, I would have definitely been a little more careful.
Now, it is so interesting, Devishobha, that you shared this incident, you've shared this incident with me before as well. But it is so amazing that I had my last point to share on this question. And your incident sharing is is just relating to what I have to share next.
Right.
The modus operandi of any adversary or any abuser, is 3. First, he will identify his victim.
Right.
Okay. Second, he will isolate his victim. Third, he will abuse the victim. Now, the story that you shared is exactly these 3 steps.
Right.
And these three steps are common to every single adversary.
Right. And he did the exact same things.
Exactly. So this is what we need to understand. As parents, as civilians, we need to understand that they will identify, they will isolate, and they will abuse. So when you see that somebody is trying to isolate you from others, now this isolation could be physical isolation, or it could sometimes be even mental or emotional isolation. Sometimes there have been cases where the abuser wants to he's identified his victim, who's a kid, and then he starts telling the kid as to why everybody around that kid is so against the kid.
Oh yeah, that also happens. That's the process of grooming that actually happens in sexual abuse.
That is called they're isolating the kid mentally and emotionally, so that it becomes easy for them to isolate the kid physically. Correct. So just understand these 3 words: identify, isolate, abuse. The moment
I have a question. Sorry. So you said let's just talk about the first step. You talked about isolation as a second step, but the first step itself, are there some characteristics that make it more likely for a perpetrator or abuser to identify a particular child as a potential victim? What are these characteristics, and what can parents do to sort of educate? Can we do anything so that our kid does not actually fall in the trap of being identified in the first place?
Absolutely. I will share one, which is the number one, identifier. And which is the case of most kids today. Let your kid be outspoken. Abusers do not like kids. Abusers do not like to abuse kids who are outspoken, because they will not keep the abuse to themselves. They will talk about it. So let your kid talk. The challenge is, we as parents, we are so brainwashed ourselves by our parents that every time a kid wants to talk, we say, shut up, shut up, shut up. There was a survey, I read it somewhere. An average listens to the word shut up over 40,000 times during his childhood.
And no. And no.
Yes. See, no is still okay, because you're telling a kid not to do something which might be dangerous for him. But shut up is definitely not the word you should be talking to your kids.
Yeah. So then the second step is isolation. So how do we ensure that our kids are not isolated physically or emotionally or mentally? How do we ensure that?
Now, this is best possible when a parent starts to spend quality time with the kid. That is when the kid starts developing the bond of, there's something called a social structure, which holds people together. And it has 5 qualities or 5 characteristics. So first one is care, then you have dependability, then you have trust, integrity, respect. So when you have built these 5 with your kid, I can guarantee you that that kid will never ever become a victim ever in his life, not for abuse, for anything.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. In fact, in my work, in my parenting work, the number one thing that I emphasize to parents is your connection with your child. And that is
Absolutely.
exactly the 5 characteristics that you're talking about. Absolutely.
Right. So, CR, you shared some great points. So, I'm just wondering, like, how do we, like, if I were in that situation and if my parents, what could my parents have done, and what can any parent do to inculcate this awareness about surroundings? And just, for me to have noticed something was amiss, because obviously I was very young, too young to notice anything and too young to know that this could happen to me, because till that time it had not happened and I was not anticipating that. So my first question is it okay for a child to be primed about these things, because these are real dangers and can have a negative impact on their minds? So obviously all parents will have that kind of an apprehension. So how do we talk to them about these kinds of situations and what they should do? And two, what are the actual steps that, for example, if they are in a park, today the park situation is a kind of a dream situation, but generally these are the public spaces that these kinds of things happen. Because in my case it happened because it was early in the morning, right? There was
Right.
obviously very few people around me, so I was an easy target. But it can happen even in a crowded mall, right? Seasoned attacker will know exactly whom to target, right? So how can the child be primed, and how can the parents themselves know to scan their surroundings and understand what's going on around them?
Okay, so we're talking about awareness here, correct?
Right.
Situational awareness. That's what we call it in the security domain. So before I can share 3 points on this, I want to share that we cannot ask our kids to do something that we aren't willing to do.
Yeah.
Correct. So the first thing, so my step number 1 is for the parents to educate themselves in personal security and safety education. If a parent does not know how to secure and defend himself or herself, there is no way how a kid is going to learn that. Because even when, there was a reason why in ancient India, the kids were sent to the Gurukul to live with the Guru. Correct. So that the parents' influence is not there on the kid. I'm not talking
So
about the good
sad.
influence. It's the bad influence. Correct. Now the guru tells you that, see, this is how you should live your life. And that day you finish your school and come back home and you see your parents live a different life. Correct. So
Objectivity is there.
exactly. So now the kid is going to believe the parents and not the teacher, even though the teacher is right. Correct. So the first thing we need to do is we need to tell the parents that you have to train and learn personal security and safety education yourself. Learn the fundamentals of security so that you can teach. Okay. Learn the security colors that we talk about. Now, this could be a possible thing that we can teach our kids. So you have 5 colors. You have code white, you have code yellow, you have code orange, you have code red, and you have code black. Correct. These are 5 security colors. Code white means that you don't know anything that's happening around you. Okay. And I see most of the kids today in this code. The moment the headphones are in your ear, you do not know anything what's happening around you. Okay. There could be a fire in the building. There's a fire alarm going on. You can't hear. Why? Because you got your pods on. Correct. So rule number 1, you will never use pods in a public place. When you're traveling, you don't put pods in your ear.
Oh
Your
my
ear needs to be
God.
open to hearing what's going around.
I am always listening to an audiobook. My God, I didn't realize what I was doing.
Correct, because there's an alarm. You will not know there's an alarm.
Yeah. And also situational awareness goes down. No, you're in your own world.
Exactly.
Oh my
So
God.
so that is point number 1. Second is involve your kids in fun activities, drills at home. Okay, make it like a game. Okay, your kid is playing, busy, you're working, work from home, you're sitting, you just finished the call, decide, okay, now let's do a fire drill. Okay, and just shout in the house, the fire, 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 not of course so loudly that your neighbors hear that. just for
Everybody
yourself.
will come running. What's happening?
Exactly. So you don't want a community fire drill happening at your expense. Okay, so you just say fire, fire, and look at how your kid responds to that. And then you tell him, see, this is what you do. If there is an earthquake, you get under the dining table. Correct? And then you call mama, dada, come under the table. So you call. Correct? So that
Take
we
the lead.
remember, if we have lost our focus, then we remember that you're, at least this is also communicating to the parents that the kid is already there under the table. So I don't have to go looking for the kid. Correct? Communication is very, very critical when you're dealing with emergencies. The communication has to be accurate and it has to be clear.
And I've seen this somewhere, or I've read this somewhere, that whenever you want to call for help, don't say help, say fire, or say, like, make it specific. The communication has to be very specific. If you say help, nobody will know what you're talking about, right?
Exactly. You don't want somebody to come with a fire hose when you've got hurt. Correct. It's ridiculous stuff. So that's point number 2. Okay, involve your kids with fun activities, drills at home. Point number 3 is security briefing. Now, this is only possible, parents can only do this when they have studied personal security and safety. So what I do with my kid is that when we go to public places, I tell my kid, or we both identify a balloon spot. Okay. Now, in case, or a washroom, for example. Now, in case there's something happens, there is some public unrest, and the kid is separated from us.
They know where to reach.
Yes. So there is an identifier, for example, a particular shop, and I tell the kid that don't stand outside the shop, stand inside the shop. Because outside the shop, anybody in that chaos will just drag him and take him away. But if he's inside the shop, 99% of the outlets today in any malls, every shop has a guard. Correct? So I tell him that go find the guard, stick with him. Okay, stay with him. Don't interrupt what he's doing, because then you become an interruption. Just stay with him and I'll come and pick you up from there. Correct? Or if there is, any hostile situation, we call it HECPO, that's hostile environment close protection. So this is what we brief the VIPs and their kids. So when we are going with a VIP and his family, and there is a situation, there's a fire or anything of that sort, attack on the VIP, we tell this VIP's kids to go and lock themselves in the bathroom. Because you have a door, you can lock it and you can stay safe. Correct? And then we give them keywords that unless and until you hear this word, don't say that where you are. Correct. So you start thinking like that.
Yeah.
That can only happen when the parent or whoever is teaching is educated in the security and safety space. Now, this is not, you can't create a textbook and have a maths or science teacher teach the subject. Not possible.
Right.
Listening to you just makes me wonder, CR, why aren't we teaching this to our kids in school?
Absolutely.
Like,
Doctor,
look at that.
We are right now, I am trying to get a curriculum into the school, and you'll be surprised know. You'll be surprised to know this, that CAPSI, the organization which governs private security industry in India. CAPSI is Central Association of Private Security Industry. So the chairman of this organization has gone to an extent of creating an NCERT book on security and has got clearance from the CBSE board, and it is still not being taught.
Why?
I don't know. Let's talk about, I don't know what, bureaucracy or lack of interest or lack of sensitivity towards
if parents want, sorry, 1 second, if parents want, can we order it off somewhere? Like, is it made available on Amazon, or like, can we order it? Can we spread awareness through our show and give parents the link to buy it, maybe?
Well, doctor, again, the question comes, who is going to teach that subject?
Parents.
It's not a subject. It's not a subject that you can just pick up a textbook and read and understand.
Oh, is it?
It has to be taught in a certain way. And if it goes wrong, you can lose life.
Yeah. I remember when my kids were young, And that was the time I actually first spoke to you, I think. I actually got together with my husband and we devised a plan where my kids would go to school, right? And if somebody kind of approached them for, to saying that, your mom has called or your dad is calling you, and you need to come right away. These things happen, right? So we told them that you need to ask him for a password, a family password, right? And and if and only if he says the right word, and we devised a password together. If he says that word, only then you come. Otherwise,
we've done that with our kids as well.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So these are very small little things. You don't need some great education in this. These are small little things that we can start doing.
Yeah.
And even the balloon spot, correct?
Right.
It's a very simple thing. It's not rocket science.
Absolutely.
So, CR, that's very interesting stuff, some of the strategies that you mentioned. But can you tell us what parents and educators do on a daily basis to inculcate this situational awareness, or even, child's own body awareness in, on an everyday basis? What can we do?
Great. So I will go to my previous point where I said that first the parents and the faculty have to be trained themselves. Correct. Without they knowing what to do in a situation, they cannot teach the kid. So I think the most important thing here is something that I learned is that when you teach the subject of security to a kid, the bond between you and the kid really fortifies. If you go back, you would probably remember, I remember my football coach, I remember my cricket coach, because they taught me physical life skills. They strengthened me, my mental and physical strength. So I remember them. Correct. I remember my Krav Maga instructor, because certain times when I got into trouble, it was whatever he taught me got me out of the trouble. So security is such a brilliant subject that can actually build the bond between the teacher and the student. Now the teacher can be a teacher from the academic field or the parent themselves. So I think the subject of security has a lot of potential, in bringing people together. Now, first thing that caretakers, parents, educators need to do is get rid of the denial syndrome. This is a big problem we have.
Yeah,
it will not happen to my it will not happen to my kid mentality. Okay, we keep saying this, and then when the kid comes back to us and tells us that I will not read this because it will not come in exam, we get off.
Good
so
example.
Correct, they learned it from us.
True.
Correct. So we need to get out of this denial syndrome. It's a very, very dangerous place to be in. And if denial was a Facebook platform, I think it would have 90% of the population signed up already.
But people don't sign up for that now because they themselves are not aware that they are in denial. That's a classic denial syndrome.
So that is very important. So getting out of denial syndrome, point number one. Point number two, let's talk about caretakers. Now, in this busy lives, we hire caretakers for our kids, correct? Now, how many of us interview the caretaker? Now, I'm sure everyone listening here will raise their hand and say, oh, yes, we do, interview the caretaker, we grill. My question is, what kind of questions are you asking them? Are you asking them about their relationship with their spouse? Are you asking them about their relationship with their in-laws? Are you asking them about their relationship with their kids? Because these are the sensitive points which 90% of the caretakers are, have a challenge with. Correct. And that disagreements, what caretakers have with their family members will ultimately show up on the kids, on your kids.
Yeah.
Correct.
Bang on.
So you are talking about everything under the sun with your caretaker. Where have you worked in the past? What have you done? Oh, my caretaker before she was working for this celebrity. I mean, who cares? Correct. But you need to start drilling into what really matters for your kids. That's very, very, very important. Okay. Second, today the threat to our kids is both physical and virtual. Because they're getting exposed to the virtual world, correct? And none of these three stakeholders are professionally trained or even equipped to mitigate them. Unless and until there is a cyber security expert listening to this podcast or anyone from that domain, nobody else is trained on how to mitigate physical and virtual threats to their kids. So when they don't know how to mitigate the threat themselves, what can we teach the kids? And this takes us to again back to the point from the previous question that are parents educated in personal safety and security? So you see, it will keep coming back to to that point. Once they go through the personal security training, they better understand their responsibilities on daily basis. For example, today I know what I need to do with my kid on a daily basis. Why? Because I'm educated in that domain. I understand what are the kind of threats he might have. In fact, there was this lady who asked me that, I wrote an article very recently on my newsletter discouraging parents from sending kids to martial art classes, giving the same reasons. So this lady, she called me up and she said, but CR, I want to send my kid to martial art classes because, I want her to learn to defend herself. I said, well, ma'am, how old is your kid? She said she is right now around 3.5 years.
Oh my God.
I'm like, are you serious? And what are these places, if I may know, where she might be going alone, where she needs to defend herself? And she didn't have an answer for that. So, we are blindly following the narrative, the most popular narrative, which is buy it, without even thinking whether it's really applicable to our kid or not.
Yeah.
Correct. Now, the threat perception will differ from family culture, society, city, state, and parents' profession. It depends. If the parent is from a kind of a profession which is into security or dealing with critical information, stuff like that, then yes, a threat perception is a little greater. Correct. It also depends on the kind of school that they go to. It also depends on the kind of kids that they hang around with. Correct. And also the teachers and their background. So there are so many factors that actually contribute to a threat perception to the kid of a kid. Correct. So when I am putting my kid in a school, my wife does the talking with the teachers, and I actually go around the school looking at campus. I do a physical threat assessment of the school because my wife is taking care of the mental threat assessment of the faculty there. Correct. So we've divided our stuff. So I go around, I take care of take a a reconnaissance of the entire facility, and I come back and I point it out to the faculty that, hey, you know what, I saw this there, I saw that there, I saw this there. What kind of security are you talking about for our kids? And that's when they get a little serious, and then no sir, वैसे हो गया वैसे हो गया.
Oh.
See, it is the
like, for example, in India, what I've seen is unless a fire actually happens, a fire accident, we're not serious about fire exits.
Absolutely.
Right? About 10 years back, 20 years back, I remember that infamous Upar theatre tragedy, right, in Delhi, where so many people were scarred to death because of this fire that broke out in the theatre. And it was realized that the fire exit was actually blocked. Yes. Right. So I think we're not even aware what is happening, the buildings that we're entering, what safety protocol, what. So can you tell us, CR, a few things that we can say ensure in our homes or schools? Do you think there are some things that we can ask about or ensure in the spaces that we frequent where we need to take care of some things?
See, this is something
safety wise.
Yes. First of all, we need to start taking security seriously. The subject of security, as civilians, we are still not serious about it. And I can give you a very small example. You just walk out of your house and you look at the guard who's guarding you, supposedly guarding you. By looking at him, you know that he can't guard you for anything. Correct. Why is that guy there? Because we are not willing to pay enough for a trained security guard. That is the biggest problem we have in our country. You go to the West, you do not have this problem. Why? Because they value life more than money. And moreover, there the regulations are even more stricter. For example, I was reading about UK in the 2000s, early 2000s. When SIA was coming up, that is security authority there. So what they did was they passed a regulation saying that this is what is a regulation. This is the standard of security you need to have. And the people who are not complying with that standard, they were being tagged. The people were being told that if you're going to that restaurant, we cannot cover your insurance if something happens to you in that restaurant, because that they are not complying with the security standard.
Wow. That's amazing. Wow.
Correct. Now that can only happen when there is an iron fist. But my question here is, why do we need an iron fist? Aren't we sensible enough to, take a call ourselves? Come on, after all, it's the matter of our kids, not somebody else. Correct. So I think it's very important that parents, everybody, whoever is listening to this podcast, start asking questions to the people who are hiring security services or security personnel around you. Why is the quality so bad? And if they tell you that it's because of you, because you are not willing to pay for it, be willing to pay a little extra buck to make sure you're safe.
Right.
So I think that is one of the most important things we need to be doing right now. And of course, once that seriousness comes, the schools will automatically start calling in, security professionals to advise them on how to, maintain security of their facility and of the kids.
Yeah. I mean, what you say is so true and so relatable. This has actually happened in our case. You remember the incident where there was this huge uproar about the 6-year-old sexual assault in school, and it became a national issue, right?
It became a national issue.
And then it, like, one by one, all the schools' names started popping up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like crazy. And it so happened that my children's school, the other branch, not the branch that they were studying in, but another branch, was also involved in something like this. And it obviously, parents were concerned. The management's response was appalling, to say the least, just appalling. But anyway, the one of the outcomes, the good outcomes of the entire thing was that parents got to demand a lot more things. And we were like, really, I mean, to think back and see that some of the basic things were not in place, and it was because parents have not asked. It's our fault. It's basically our fault, right? If we are paying, I mean, I think we have the right to demand that a few basic things at least are in place, but we don't pay attention to that, right? We look at marketing material, वो बोलेंगे स्मार्ट बोर्ड्स है हमारे पास, अपने पास ये स्विमिंग पूल है, ये है, वो है. So what use is all this? You know? So, and they'll use some jargon, and we all fall flat for all that. So I think this is the main problem. Right. So, Sierra, I just want to understand how schools and parents can work together to bring out awareness about this topic.
Okay, so I will share 3 steps here. The first one is, again, educate yourself on the subject of personal safety and security, because I will keep coming back to that. That's the core of what we are talking about here today. Second, very important, is convince each other to hire a subject matter expert to address the security challenges. And why am I saying convince each other is because, Devishobha, I've been running In Code Yellow for a very long time now.
Yes.
And I'm sure you would have noticed that for the last 2.5 years, I've not made a single post on social media about my trainings, because I have been hitting a dead end. Not just me, even other professionals want to get the same awareness. And the roadblock that we are facing is that when we talk to an institution that, hey, you know what, I have this program and I want to use this to create sensitivity about gender and abuse between kids and parents and all the stakeholders, the standard reply what we get from school is that the parents are not willing to pay for it.
That is so sad.
Now the only thing that you get for free in India is at the Indira canteen or Amma canteen or whatever stuff. You cannot get professional expertise to secure your kids for free. I am very sorry to say this. Correct? No matter how much of a parent I am, but I cannot go around giving things for free to people who will not value it.
Obviously.
Correct. So the first thing, second point, what we need to focus on is the parents and the institutions. They need to convince each other that this curriculum is important for us, for you, for our kids. Correct. And once that happens, for example, now one who understands personal security, okay, whether it's physical, psychological, or virtual, in correlation with the social security, What is social security? It is the impact of culture on our kids' safety and security. That plays a very, very big role. And the internal security. What is internal security? I'm talking about the national internal security, which is your crime, which is your drugs. Now, drugs are becoming a very rampant things in institutions, correct? Now, you need to get somebody who understands these three aspects that are a possible threat to your students or to your kids, correct? So that is what needs to come. That is what needs to be addressed by subject matter experts, not by some counselor, not by somebody who knows only one domain. A counselor has a different role to play, which I cannot do. As a security consultant, I cannot do her job or his job. And as counselor, they can't do my job.
Right.
Correct. So everyone has their importance in our society. So we need to get the subject matter expert and get the subject addressed. And last but not the least, I think, is to talk to our kids about security without sounding like they are being interrogated. Now, this is a very, very important point. Everyone must understand and listen carefully. Now, my wife told one of her friend that, you know what, my kid, he tells me everything that happens to him in school. I mean, this is like a couple of years back when he was in school. And what that friend did was she started interrogating her kid once he was back from school.
Oh, God.
Correct. Now, there is a difference between the kid voluntarily telling the mother and you interrogating your kid and asking questions. The impact on the kid is going to be completely different.
Right.
You are going to leave a psychological, trauma onto your kid. Correct. Imagine a mother interrogating a kid. I mean, I can't even imagine that. Correct. So these are two different things. So we need to understand. A kid will tell you every single thing when you initiate a story with him. So how was your school today? Casual. So what are your friends doing? What did they get for lunch? Did you share lunch? This is how you need to get into a conversation with your kid and then let them open up. And trust me, if this happens, if you let your kids speak, when they are speaking, we need to keep quiet and listen. That's very important. Correct. And once you have this going for 1 week, 10 days, 1 month, you will start seeing that your kid is telling you every single thing that's happening in school. Sometimes it has also been noticed that these kind of kids bring to the notice of their parents abuse that they have seen on some other kid. They are witness to something like that in school.
Yeah, this actually happened. And I know of a mother who actually saw this happening. Her child actually saw that an instructor, that as a teacher, was trying to come on to another girl in class.
Oh my God.
She noticed that, and she actually, my friend's daughter called it out. And the girl's mother, the child who was actually getting abused, she refused to believe it.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Come on.
Denial syndrome.
Right. So, I mean, there's a whole lot of, I think the first challenge is education.
Absolutely.
Right.
I'm a parent myself, but right now I'm talking as a subject matter expert, and I'm telling, put all the parents in the auditorium and give them a class. Okay, let the kids play outside. Okay, I think it's high time we put the parents in the classroom and do some classes. It's very, very important. These are life-saving. This is life-saving education.
Right. Absolutely agree. So, CR, what skills come under this umbrella according to you?
Now, when you talk about skills, there are hundreds of skills, which I can probably think of, but I will stress on the most critical ones that, probably the listeners can take away from this podcast and actually implement in their lives right away. The first is accurate thinking. Now, what is accurate thinking? It is the ability to isolate facts that will help you analyze a particular situation better. Because right now, social media and so many other things, there's so much of noise out there. It's very important that you understand how to identify, isolate, correct? Identify, isolate, and pick it up. That this is the information that I need, which will help me take a better decision. Correct. So accurate thinking, that is the first one. The second and very, very important is emotional intelligence. And I cannot stress, I don't know how much to stress on this, but this is the most important thing, both of them. The I'll just define what emotional intelligence is according to me. It is the ability to control the creation of an emotion or the emotion itself, whether the trigger is by the self or by someone else.
Yeah.
Correct. Now, right now, you look at the situation out there, everyone is speaking in emotion, and one particular emotion, anger.
Yeah.
And this anger is because I'll tell you a very interesting fact. I don't know if it's a fact, can call it a fact, but this is something that I've discovered. The reason why this anger is coming out is because so far the people in the house, they have been going to work outside. Correct. So whatever the differences are there at home, they have been avoiding by going outside to work. Correct. There is no confrontation of the of the issues that one is having with the other, the relationships. Now for the past 2 years, you put them in the same house 24/7. So now they can't run away from the differences they have, and they're pissed off about it, and they get angry about it, and they are all the negative emotions are erupting, because now they have to talk about the elephant in the room. They can't avoid the elephant anymore. And this is what is causing so much of psychological stress to people.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Correct. So accurate thinking and emotional intelligence.
Can you, CR, before you proceed, can you give an example of accurate thinking? You said to identify and isolate, but can you put it in context a little?
Okay, the quick example I can think of might not be relating to the kids, but because the adults are listening to this, I will share the example. So before there was a terrorist in Kashmir, Burhan Mani. Before he was killed by the security forces, just like maybe a week before or something, 3 videos of animal cruelty went viral on Facebook and social media. Okay, 3 videos. And they went viral all of a sudden, and nobody knew where they came from and why they are being, of course, animal cruelty, everyone's passionate about animals, so everyone got angry. And then suddenly they disappeared, and then this guy gets killed by the security forces, and then there are protests in Kashmir where women and children pictures are morphed with injury marks, and they are again pushed into the social media. And this anger that was created by the animal cruelty videos was channelized to that cause. Okay. Now, the first thing I thought to myself when I saw these videos going viral is, why are these videos going viral now? Accurate thinking is you start questioning what you are seeing. Why is it happening? One, why is it happening now? Why not 10 days before, 10 days after? Why now? There is a reason why everything happens. So why is it happening now? Maybe something is going to happen now. Correct? Something next. Correct? So that is accurate thinking. You questioning what you are seeing and trying to identify logic behind it. And then, of course, the recent whistleblower from Facebook made it very evident that Facebook was indulging in promoting content which would create social anger. So that explains that why those videos went viral and how that social anger was used in a malicious way.
Imagine what that can do to young minds.
Absolutely. So that is why you see that today kids, as small as somebody who's in 8th standard or 5th standard, they have political affiliations. Seriously. I mean, I did not know what party was there out there in the parliament, what parties existed, maybe till I was 5th, 7th standard, 8th standard. Not that I was ignorant, but I did not want to participate in a political discussion back then. But today you look at kids who are in 5th standard, they are liking political posts and they are forwarding political messages. I mean, where are we heading?
I think awareness is a double-edged.
Very well said.
So I want to end this answer with a very important point. We also need to understand the cycle of life. There is survival, there is stability, there is success, there is significance. We all go through these 4 stages in life. Correct? Now, if you notice, life or situations, whatever you want to consider that, will keep taking us back to survival many times. Correct? The pandemic is a classic example that we have gone back to survival.
Exactly.
Correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, this happens because it wants to indicate that there is something new to be learned to go to the next level. Correct? We fail in a certain class because we haven't learned a lesson. And unless and until we learn that lesson, we are not getting promoted to the next class. And same thing is with life or situations, whether personal or professional.
Absolutely. Very well said, Sia. Thank you so much for putting it so beautifully and so elaborately for us to understand the intricacies of the matter, right? So thank you very much for that. So I just want to understand what trainings are available for this, for parents, for children themselves, for educators also. Now that schools are opening up, where can they look?
Okay, now I could be sounding like a frog in the well, but currently I happen to be the only soul in India who's talking about personal security education. Okay, I haven't found anyone else talking this content, relating to both women and children. And because, I have been searching for other people, because I don't like, there's nothing called competition when you're trying to save lives.
Right.
Like, it's not that I saved many more lives than you. No, it doesn't work that way. When you are in the security domain, we have to work together. There's nothing called competition. Our only competitor is the adversary. Correct.
Right.
So we need to join forces when you're in the security domain. So I have been looking actively outside for partners who are into the similar line. And then that's when I found this other company, which is into a very, very interesting line, which is called cyber psychology. Now, the company's name is Cyber Diplomat LLC, the one you just shared in my introduction.
Yes. Right.
Now, this company is bringing the three important stakeholders, that is the kids, parents, and institutions together. Now, they have designed programs which are talking about making technology safer for kids by isolating the kids from the harmful effects of technology. So that's when I found these guys. And now, because they are into the psychology domain, they are into the virtual domain, I'm into the physical domain. So now we both are working together, and we are bringing possibly the India's first comprehensive program for kids, teachers, and parents on personal safety and security, which includes cyber as well.
Oh, wow. So anybody can purchase this program, and how does it work?
We are going to reach out to schools.
Okay.
We are also trying to create awareness among parents, because remember my second point, what I mentioned, both of them have to convince each other that there is a need for this. So yes, so we are trying, and we are looking for somebody who can help us promote these programs to the stakeholders.
We hope we can spread the message through our podcast, and this is one of our attempts to do that. So congratulations on the amazing work you're doing, CR. I know you're very, very passionate about this, and your passion shows every time you speak. I mean, it's very genuine and very, very heartfelt. And the points that you brought up are so genuine and so relatable and so very important. You just cannot, we tend to overlook it, all of it, unfortunately, but we simply cannot afford to anymore. So thank you so much for being on the show, and thank you for your time, and thank you for throwing a light on this very sensitive but such an important topic in such a succinct and very sensitive manner. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on the show, Dr. Meghna and Devishobha. It was a pleasure speaking to you guys today.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Awesome. So that's our episode for today. Thank you for listening to Big Talk About Tiny Humans, our podcast for parents and educators.
Hope you enjoyed it, and don't forget to share it with your friends and family.
Listen and subscribe to Big Talk About Tiny Humans on the IVM Podcasts app, website, and all major audio platforms. We are available everywhere.
You can follow us on social media and online. Meghna is at The Therapist Mommy on Instagram and YouTube. And you can check out her website, raisingfamilyacademy.com, for a transformative course on raising a child with emotional intelligence.
And Devishobha is at KidsKintha on Twitter and Instagram. And check out kidskintha.com for in-depth articles and events on parenting and child development.
While you're at it, do also check out other great shows from the IVM Podcasts network at shows.ivmpodcasts.com. And IVM is on social media at IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
We'll catch you again on our next episode.
हम महिलाएं रोज के कामों में बहुत व्यस्त रहती हैं और हो भी क्यों ना, काम, पढ़ाई और जिम्मेदारियां सभी पूरी करनी जरूरी हैं। पर इन सब के बीच हम जीवन के एक बहुत ही जरूरी पहलू को नजरअंदाज कर देते हैं, फाइनेंस। इसीलिए हम आपके लिए लेकर आए हैं SBI लाइफ प्रस्तुत एक चुस्की फाइनेंस, महिलाओं द्वारा महिलाओं के लिए बनाया गया पॉडकास्ट। यहाँ मैं प्रियंका आचार्य, आपकी होस्ट, आपके साथ शेयर करूंगी कि किस तरह आप अपने फाइनेंसेस को बहुत आसानी से संभाल सकती हैं और फाइनेंशियली इंडिपेंडेंट बन सकती हैं। अपने 14 वर्षों का अनुभव लिए मैं आ रही हूँ हिंदी और अन्य 7 भाषाओं में हर मंगलवार नए एपिसोड्स के साथ IVM पॉडकास्ट नेटवर्क और अन्य चर्चित पॉडकास्ट प्लेटफॉर्म्स पर।
Love fighting?
We've got you covered.
Check out our show, The Fighting Goat, where we, the voices of the internet, Arjun Chipalkatti and Somesh Kamra, bring to you crazy weekly action on your favorite combat show, The Fighting Goat.
Be it commentary, breakdown, predictions, analysis of styles and techniques.
And of course, your round of favorite fighters.
You can listen to us every Thursday on the IVM Podcast app, website, and all major podcast streaming platforms.